Am I audible?
Yes, very clearly
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. With the permission of the speakers, I take this opportunity to welcome on behalf of the Honorable Vice Chancellor of Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences and the Registrar, the participants for this workshop webinar, which is being conducted regularly by the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences. Today's topic will be on vaccination, myths and facts. The speakers are persons of eminent repute and experience, and with a lot of active participation in the management of COVID at the state and national level. Without wasting much time, I will hand over the floor to our Honorable Vice Chancellor to introduce the speakers and make his opening remarks. Honorable Vice Chancellor, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be a part of this program, a continued medical education program to educate the healthcare workers and all concerned stakeholders to educate them in the topic on COVID. All of us know that COVID is there with us since 15 months, and during the initial time when COVID was an enigma, where not much had been understood about this particular disease. Then the only hope at that point of time was when it will be introduced, when is vaccine going to come? And so we were all eagerly waiting. That was somewhere in the last July, August 2020. And later on, thanks to the scientific world, thanks to the scientists who worked day and night, and then also the administrators across the world who could clear the vaccine within on an emergency basis, and the vaccine was launched almost in a record time of 1 year, and it was available. And in India, vaccination was introduced with our own vaccine, indigenously developed Covaxin and also Covishield, which were approved by Government of India. And since January, vaccination started here. Then vaccine hesitation, we were all surprised. The frontline workers, the healthcare workers were the first ones to be, approved for vaccination. And for whatever reasons, a lot of hesitancy was there for taking vaccination in the initial period. And then myself, along with Dr. Ravi, Dr. Sudarshan, then Dr. Vishal Rao and Dr. Lokesh Alari, we conducted a panel discussion to take away the myths and other, and also to provide the facts about vaccination to the general public. And subsequently, definitely it has improved. Now the vaccination is now is happening briskly, but there's a period also in between. We had to have a period of shortage of vaccines. Even that is now being addressed. Now we have vaccines with us. We have people who are eager to take. Now only the logistics has to be planned as to how and where, when and how the vaccination has to be given. Apart from that, there are a set of people who are still hesitant to take vaccine, and they have a lot of doubts in their minds. Any number of such programs, we always have the same questions, being thrown at us, asking for, common things, what has to be done, the do's and don'ts during vaccination, and post-vaccination, what will happen. These doubts are always there in the minds of the common people. So, Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, we requested Dr. M.K. Sudarshan, Chairman of the Technical Advisory Committee, Government of Karnataka, and Dr. V. Ravi, retired professor of virology, NIMHANS, and also presently member of the TAC committee. I thank them on behalf of RGHS for accepting this invitation. Without wasting much time, let us all hear them and also enlighten our audience regarding the myths and facts of vaccination. Thank you so much. Over to Dr. Dayanand.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Ravi, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you, RGHS, for the opportunity to talk on COVID vaccination myths and facts. And I thank our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sachidanandam, for giving us this opportunity. Professor Sudarshan, senior colleague and chairman TAC, and I will be handling this session. We divided into two short presentations from both of us. I will be talking on vaccines, and Dr. Sudarshan will be talking on vaccination. Uh, what I will do in the next 15 minutes is to tell you about some facts and myths related to COVID vaccine. I hope you're all able to see my screen.
Yes, sir. You can see.
Thank you. I'll start with a disclaimer. All information in this talk is based on scientific evidence. And as I always say, it's not from WhatsApp University. I have no conflict of interest to declare. Definitely no shares in any vaccine company. I'll be factual and not prescriptive. SARS-CoV-2 is a new virus that was reported late 2019. It is a coronavirus that enters human body through the nose and the mouth and the eyes, through the mucosal surfaces, attaches to a specific receptor on the cell surface, which all of us know is the angiotensin converting enzyme 2, and then it replicates within cells. And while it replicates, it multiplies itself, and when it multiplies itself, it also makes mistakes. And if the mutations increase, then we get variants. Whenever a cell is multiplying, a virus is multiplying in a cell, it triggers an immune response. Usually, macrophages and dendritic cells pick up the virus, process the antigen, and present it to the helper cells in the human body. And then, through the helper cell, trigger either a B cell response or a cytotoxic T cell response. Why do we need COVID vaccine? The goal of vaccination is to create immunity in the host to prevent disease, both in those who are not exposed to the virus and those who are exposed to the virus, thereby mitigate public health, economic, and societal impacts. Most vaccines in human history have been viral vaccines have been designed to induce antibody responses that target specific viral proteins and generate neutralizing antibodies, so that when subsequently an infection occurs, you will have protection against it. SARS-CoV-2 vaccine development historically started almost within a month after the virus was reported and was spreading. And by January 5th, the entire genome sequence was already available, and it was an unprecedented task in getting the vaccine out in about 9 months. The next 10 minutes, 12 minutes, I will answer these questions. What are the steps in COVID-19 vaccine development before it is approved for human use? What are the technologies that have been used in COVID vaccine development? How do COVID-19 vaccines work? Do they protect against disease or infection? Do COVID vaccines work against newer variants? What is the COVID-19 vaccine scenario globally, and what is the scenario locally? COVID vaccine development process is like any other vaccine development process, like any other viral vaccine. So many have been developed. There are two major arms to vaccine development. The first arm is the preclinical testing. Now, in the preclinical testing, a vaccine candidate is first job is to identify the antigens that are protective, and then evaluate the vaccine in animal models. There are two sets of animals that are used in COVID-19. The small animals that are used for vaccine evaluation are mouse and ferret, and the larger animal is rhesus monkey. Now, once a vaccine candidate shows efficacy in animals, especially against a live virus challenge, only then is it approved for human clinical testing. Human clinical testing classically occurs in 4 phases. Phase 1 is addressed to look at safety of the vaccine. Is it safe? Does it produce any side effects? Does it affect metabolism? Does it affect genetic composition? And does it have any major reactions? Phase 2 is directed against immunogenicity. Immunogenicity is where we ask the question, is the vaccine inducing the correct type of immune response? Phase 3 is the acid test of the vaccine efficacy. And phase 4, which is now ongoing in COVID vaccine, is post-marketing surveillance to find out if there are any long-term effects of the vaccine that is noted in the vaccinated people. Classically, these preclinical and clinical testing, as well as the 4 phases of clinical testing, usually take several years, usually anywhere between 5 to 10 years. But COVID was unprecedented. In 6 to 9 months, there were overlapping things that were conducted, and in a matter of 9 months, we had vaccines approved for emergency use. What are the technologies, the platform technologies used for vaccine development? Conventionally, you all know many viral vaccines, the whole virus is used, either in a killed form or in a live attenuated form. In COVID-19, killed vaccines have already been developed and approved for emergency use. One is our own Bharat Biotech indigenous vaccine made from an isolate of National Institute of Virology. The virus is grown, purified, inactivated, and the product is called Covaxin. Chinese have developed a similar one. It's called Sinovac. The other technologies that have been in use are the protein subunits. A classical example prior to COVID-19 was the hepatitis B surface antigen, where the spike protein gene of COVID-19 is cloned into either bacterial or yeast expression systems, enormous amount of protein made, and that protein is used for immunization. We know spike protein is the most important protein that induces protection. 2 other vaccines for the first time in the history of medicine have been evaluated and approved for human use and being used in millions now. One is nucleic acid vaccines. Nucleic acid vaccines is to use either the RNA, the genetic material of the virus, especially the RNA coding for spike protein. These are called mRNA vaccines. Pfizer and Moderna are an example of it. Viral vectored vaccines are spike protein of SARS-CoV-2 piggybacking on another virus that does not produce infection and that is innocuous. And the most widely used viral vector for COVID vaccination has been the adenovirus. The AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine made by Serum Institute of India, which is called Covishield, is a chimpanzee adenovirus backbone into which spike protein is expressed on the surface of SARS-CoV-2. The Sputnik vaccine is also a viral vector vaccine that uses 2 adenoviruses, adenovirus 26 as the first dose and adenovirus 5 as the second dose. And all these viral vectored vaccines, they are designed in such a way that they enter a cell, release the genetic material, and the nucleic acid goes into translation, but the virus can't replicate beyond 1 cycle because the essential gene for replication has been removed. In other words, they are suicidal viruses. They deliver the RNA and they die. They cannot multiply on their own. Johnson & Johnson vaccine is also an adenovirus viral vector vaccine. How do COVID-19 vaccines work? Do they protect against disease or infection? Vaccines are designed to induce immunity in an artificial manner. The advantages vaccine have over natural infection is the amount of antigen delivered is humongous in a vaccine. Be it recombinant protein or viral vector vaccine or whole virus vaccine or RNA, the amount the immune system in a concentrated way is delivered in one shot. Now, this induces both T and B cells and results in a very brisk immune response. And when this is boosted by a second dose, then it definitely induces memory cells and it also sensitizes the immune system to recognize the antigen better. Almost all the vaccines that have been cleared for human use are vaccines today that require 2 doses, excepting the Johnson & Johnson adenovirus vector vaccine, which has been approved for a single dose with an efficacy of around 70 to 75%. There is a second Sputnik vaccine known as Sputnik Light that is undergoing trials right now. It is expected to get emergency use authorization as a single dose vaccine with an reported efficacy of 70 to 80%. All vaccines in human history, viral vaccines especially, are designed to protect against disease and also against death due to disease. They do not guarantee protection against infection. This is something that is fundamental. I know many of you know, but still there are people who ask me questions. What's the purpose of vaccination if it doesn't protect against infection? No vaccine developed till date has protected against infection. Therefore, it is too much to expect COVID vaccines. So the corollary of this term protection means you can still get infected after vaccination. And also you can transmit the infection to others. Will the vaccines work against variants? As you know, there are 4 variants of concern that have been reported in the last 6 months, starting December beginning. The first one was the UK variant. It's called B.1.117. The recent name for it given by WHO is alpha virus, the alpha variants. The second one was reported from South Africa, B.1.351, which is called beta in the WHO terminology. The third one from Brazil, P.1, and this is called gamma. And then the one reported in India, which is a double mutant, and it's called B.1.617 lineage, which is called the delta. Now, these are the 4 ones. They are important because they have higher rate of infection, and they also grow much better in cell lines. A very recent paper published in New England Journal of Medicine very clearly showed that the efficacy of vaccines, this is a very complex table. I've boxed the efficacy in red in the right for you. Each row is one type of vaccine. As you can see, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna, Gamaleya, which is the Sputnik, AstraZeneca, Sinovac, and there's also the Sinopharm, which is another Chinese vaccine. As you can see on the right in the table, the efficacy of the vaccines against variants, in this case, especially against UK variant, is different for different vaccines. Remember, all these vaccines, though the efficacy measured in trials is RT-PCR positivity, all of them show very good protection, 90 to 95% protection against severe disease and death. Studies in India by National Institute of Virology has shown that Covishield vaccine, a very recent study published in Oxford University Press Journal, has shown that the Covishield vaccinated individual's serum is able to neutralize the 617 variant, as well as the recovered people's serum is also able to neutralize in the laboratory the Indian double mutant or the Delta variant. They also published another paper on Covaxin, and they compared here Covaxin neutralization using serum samples from those with the parent Wuhan strain, and then the 617 and the UK variant, and these serum samples are able to neutralize all variants equally well. This is good news. Yes, it does not prevent infection, but certainly it prevents serious disease and death. What is the COVID vaccine scenario globally? I just summarized in one slide. There are many vaccines that have under development. 184 are still in preclinical stage. 35 vaccines have made it to phase 1 trial, and they are under phase 1 trial currently. This is as of May 15th. 36 vaccines, various types. Each color here represents one type of vaccine. The orange is nucleic acid vaccines. The blue is viral vectored vaccines. The pink is subunit protein based vaccines. And the blue, light blue, is whole virus vaccine. There are 36 vaccines in phase 2, 25 vaccines in phase 3, 15 vaccines already approved for emergency use authorization, among which 5 are already in the post-marketing phase, where vaccinated individuals are being followed up after the trials are over and they are in phase 4. What about the Indian scenario? The Indian scenario, we have Covishield, Covaxin, and Sputnik. Covishield is viral vectored adenovirus based vaccine. Sputnik is also adenovirus vectored. Covaxin is our own indigenous inactivated vaccine. These have been approved for emergency use and are already being used in the country right now. There are another 5 vaccines that are in the pipeline, and I thought I'll just give you a quick 2-minute summary on them. Covishield, we all know, it's already approved, DCGI approved, and is now conducting trials in children in UK, and they hope to provide the data to DCGI for consideration for, and this is in the 12 to 18, that the trial is almost over, data is being analyzed. So probably very soon we'll have it for children. Covaxin has completed its phase 3 trials. Results are under analysis. Covaxin has recently been approved for pediatric use from 2 to 18 years, and it will be available, probably the data will be available in August end. Sputnik is right now being imported from Gamaleya Labs, but there are 5 companies in India who are going to make vaccine. And Sputnik is also conducting a single dose vaccine called Sputnik Light, and those results will be available shortly. Zydus Cadila in India has made the first DNA vaccine, indigenous, and this is already in phase 3 trials. And very interestingly, this is a 3-dose vaccine. It is not a 2-dose vaccine. And this is a vaccine when in trials itself included children between the age of 2 to 18. So these results also will be available very shortly, and it approved. This will be a DNA vaccine. Production is much faster, and you can the amount of doses produced will be very high with this vaccine. Biological Evans, a company in Hyderabad, is making a subunit protein-based vaccine. It is expressing recombinantly SARS-CoV-2 virus containing the receptor binding domain, very specific protein, and this is a yeast expression system, and it is going to be along with an adjuvant, which is a CpG motif. It's already in phase 2 trials. It's ongoing. Results are expected by August for phase 3 combined. Covovax is a vaccine being developed by Serum Institute of India, a second vaccine being developed by Serum Institute. And this is a recombinant spike protein nanoparticle vaccine. This is not like the Covishield. This is a protein-based vaccine. It's a subunit vaccine using nanoparticles and an adjuvant. It is undergoing trials in Australia, and it will be very soon, the data will be submitted to Indian regulator. BBV154 is an intranasal vaccine of Bharat Biotech, and this is a vaccine that is going to be, if it is successful, going to be a game changer. Now, this is a vaccine that is intranasal in administration, and as of now, they are evaluating the vaccine in experimental animals. It was very, very promising, and it's undergoing phase 1 trial. And this vaccine, along with other nasal vaccines, promises to even give protection against infection, because locally it is going to induce immunity. India's own mRNA vaccine being developed by Genova Biopharmaceuticals is in phase 1 and 2 clinical trials. Very, very promising vaccine, very potent vaccine. I happen to know about all the Indian vaccines because I co-chair the vaccine committee of the Department of Biotechnology. There are several myths related to vaccination and vaccine. I will address only the vaccine ones. It contains egg protein. No, no vaccine is made in egg. It can give you COVID. No, there is no live attenuated vaccine approved yet. It changes your genetic makeup. No, it does not integrate into human genome. It was rushed and safe. No, I think Dr. Sudarshan also will talk about it. He'll also tell you about side effects and also the myths that generally are associated with other vaccines, that women become fertile and infertile, and also you cannot use vaccines during monthly periods. In summary, SARS-CoV-2 is a new virus. You can get protection only through infection or vaccination. 4 major platform technologies, namely genetic vaccines, subunit vaccines, vectored vaccines, and whole virus vaccines are being used. Vaccines, all of them released for emergency authorization use, are very safe. As a very famous philosopher said, to live is to risk dying. So as long as you're alive, there is a risk of death. So please do not believe the anti-vaccine lobby saying vaccines produce serious side effects. The side effects are very serious. Side effects are very minimal. Of course, they are there. I'm not saying it is not there. All COVID vaccines protect against severe disease and death, but not necessarily against infection. Thank you. One easy way to stay safe is to get vaccinated. I'll stop now and I'll hand it over to Professor Sudarshan.
Can I have the screen share, please? Yeah.
Gautam, share ಮಾಡಿ slide, please.
ಅಲ್ಲ ನಾನೇ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ, ಒಂದು ನಿಮಿಷ
ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ ಸರ್? ಓಕೆ ಸರ್.
ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ.
Gautam sir will do it.
Okay, is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So
Yes, sir.
I think I will carry forward from where Dr. P. Ravi stopped. He has spoken as a virologist and he has told all about the vaccine from a laboratory or a virologist perspective. Now I will be speaking as a preventive medicine physician and from a clinic perspective of when we use the vaccine that is made available, what are the issues that come up in clinical application of the vaccines. So I will be presenting as myths and facts. My lecture is based on 1. Guidelines of Government of India. 2. Recommendations of World Health Organization. 3. Fact sheet or the product insert. 4. Interestingly, it will be my experiences of using vaccines in the last 35 years, mostly adult vaccines, almost all rabies vaccines, and sometime in the past the pediatric vaccines also. So I will be just touching upon the myths and the facts as related to vaccination. Now, why these are important is when in a physician is using the vaccine, the questions are asked by the person receiving the vaccine. And today, because of social media, there are more questions and less answers. So before you inject the vaccine, you will have to first inject confidence and trust in your vaccinee. And next is COVID is a new disease and it has come as a pandemic. The first was a wave, second is a tsunami. Now people are very terrified, and if you have seen, in some places there has been a lathi charge of those who were standing and rushing for vaccine. These are something which were unknown, unheard of. And next is, these vaccines have come as express deliveries. I will tell about it. This is the first slide, and anybody for that matter will have some doubt when we don't have a vaccine for HIV, when it took many years to develop polio vaccine, smallpox vaccine, and other vaccines. This has come in a span of about 8 to 10 months. So these things will lead to certain issues, and also this lecture is mostly, of course, for medical professionals. Whatever you can take from our lectures, both Ravi and myself, you can use it as appropriate to inform your beneficiaries. And I am also told that there are persons from the media who can pass on the message appropriately to the general public. So I will go to the first myth, that is, the vaccines have come so fast, express delivery. The answer is, the disease also came as a express delivery. So to overcome the pandemic, we need such fast tracking of vaccine. We cannot be going at a conventional pace. So these vaccines, under the provisions of law, not only in India, other countries, and all these regulations and methods have been approved not only by the national regulatory authorities, but also by World Health Organization and other regulatory authorities of the European Union, or could be other countries. So the vaccines approved are basically, first what we look for is safety. So if it is safe, it can be injected. Next comes the efficacy, that is the ability to prevent the infection and or disease. Here it is disease. The vaccines were approved by subject expert group in the CDSCO, that is the DCGI office, and there is a new regulation, new drugs and clinical trial rules, and following these guidelines, uh, these vaccines have been given emergency use authorization by DCGI. Almost all COVID vaccines are express deliveries given under emergency use authorization. They are not available in the market. So you will have to go to the institutions to get vaccinated. So these are some of the differences which one must appreciate. And initially the vaccines were all free, and now there is a fee for vaccination, I think since May. So this is something that is a new phenomena which we must appreciate, and the context is it is to ensure that the vaccines are safely used, rightly used, and there shall not be any problems if it is made freely available. The COVID-19 disease, of course, as I told you, that in the absence of any specific drug for the virus, any anti-COVID virus proven efficacy, and currently it is only the vaccine and the face mask which are providing the necessary protection against the disease. Now next is, of course, the vaccines can be swapped. First dose one vaccine, second dose another vaccine. Now the studies are in progress, but there are some extraneous situations where you see, there is an important thing. Like, first, let me tell you. Currently, there are two vaccines available as on today, Covishield and Covaxin. The vaccines are theoretically interchangeable. The science of vaccine permits change of vaccine. But due to lack of scientific evidence from clinical studies on the currently available COVID vaccines, it is not recommended and the trials are in progress. Of course, there may be, as I told you, the guidelines are one aspect. In extraneous circumstances, weighing the risk and benefit, and depending on the circumstance and the assessment of the situation, looking at the beneficiary, these current COVID vaccines are clinic based vaccines, institution based vaccines. They are not available in the market. So keeping these, and also there is a purchase contract between the institution that procures the vaccine and the manufacturer. And
Gautam?
ಎಸ್ ಸರ್ ಎಸ್ ಸರ್
ಏನೋ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸೈಲೆಂಟ್ ಆಯ್ತು.
ಸರ್ದು ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಸರ್, ನೆಟ್ವರ್ಕ್ ಇಶ್ಯೂ ಆಗಿದೆ.
ಓಕೆ
ವೇಟ್.
What happened? We have lost Professor Sudarshan.
there was some problem. Am I back?
Oh, you're back.
Yes, sir.
You're
Yeah,
back.
yeah. So there was some internet issue. So the issue is following the cusp, an anaphylaxis to first dose of Covishield, a healthcare worker continues to work in a very high risk COVID ward, requires a second dose of COVID vaccination. Is it right to give Covaxin? Is a very tricky issue. And these are some of the things which we need to keep in mind. In the current scenario, the guidelines and the recommendations do not permit, but what happens to that person is something which we need to address. See, evidence and practice is like a chicken and egg story. So whether it is egg first or chicken first, so this thing will continue, but one need to keep in mind these some complex situations where one need to address some of these exigencies. I think let me go back. Now next myth is COVID-19 vaccine has severe side effects such as allergic reactions. See, the data from clinical trials has shown only the usual local and systemic effects that are reported in other vaccines, that is local pain, induration, and systemic may be fever and chills and headache. These are the common ones. Though there are other issues, rarely anaphylaxis has happened, and also there has been some supposedly some reports of blood clot and others which we all know. But as of now, the current vaccines, I will just show that they are quite safe and there are no issues. Now another myth is, I already had COVID-19 infection or a disease, so I don't need to receive the vaccine. Now, presently the duration of anti-COVID antibodies that develop following a natural infection or a COVID illness is known to last for about 3 to 4 months. That is the information. Some recent information shows it could be a little longer also. And the role of T cell immunity, that is the cell mediated immunity, is still not clearly understood. So under these circumstances, there are also certain, there are
Sorry
also
to
some,
interrupt you, sir.
yes sir.
Sir,
Yes,
please share the screen, sir.
oh, okay. Oh, 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 there was some internet problem, so it
Yes,
went
sir.
away. Are you?
It's raining very heavily. So,
Yeah. No, I have only moved one slide. That's all.
okay.
So, the role of cell-mediated immunity is to be understood. So, and also there are some reports of reinfection. So, under these circumstances, I think the recommendation is, as per Government of India guidelines also, the person who recovers from COVID asymptomatic infection or mild or whatever is the severity of the illness, after 3 months from recovery shall receive the vaccination. So this is the guideline, and there shall not be any doubt about it, and people are going in for vaccination, those who have COVID recovered persons. Next is, uh, once I received COVID vaccine, I no longer need to wear a mask. I will put this information. Face masking, hand washing, and physical distancing remain necessary in public until a sufficient number of people are immune. Fully vaccinated people can meet with fully vaccinated people without wearing mask. Please note within the bracket, this is a new phenomena that is happening in US. But in India, current recommendation is that we will not do such ventures. We continue to wear masks even though we are having a meeting of people who are fully vaccinated, means 2 doses of vaccine received, and there shall not be any such venture of removing the face mask as on today in India. So this is something which we need to remember. Now next is, one cannot donate blood after COVID-19 vaccination. The national guideline is one can safely donate blood 2 weeks, 14 days after the vaccination as per the guidelines. Now these are very commonly asked when one receives the vaccine and is waiting for 30 minutes of observation, whether one should avoid meat during vaccination or anything. They will ask. No dietary restrictions whatsoever. And next is, one should not consume alcohol after COVID-19 vaccination. On 16th January, after receiving the first dose of Covishield, the media people asked me, and then it led to a lot of problems. So there is no contraindication to consumption of alcohol per se. Though generally it is recommended to avoid alcohol consumption following vaccination, there are no rigid restrictions for any social drinking. So this I am sharing it with medical professionals, and alcohol consumption per se is not a contraindication. The science of immunization says that those who are chronic alcoholics, their immune system responds slowly. So at least during this period of COVID vaccination, if they can resist the temptation, the vaccination may be more effective is the logic. But there are instances we are told that they are ready to give up vaccination to alcohol consumption, and even during the first lockdown last year 2020, when in the initial stages the liquor shops were closed, some chronic alcoholics desperately have consumed hand sanitizers. We all know that. So in these type of situations, you will have to handle your vaccinee. If he asks a question about uh, mm, permission to take alcohol, you will have to use your intelligence and wisdom and appropriately advise to see that the person takes the vaccination and shall not drop out because of alcohol issue. And same thing also related to smoking. There are no such restrictions for smoking or even for pan, zarda and all that. There is nothing. So, myth is you can get COVID infection or disease from the vaccine. No, it is all inactivated, or you can say that it is a part of the antigen that is taken. So it is not a live virus. That is, these are all not live vaccines for anyone to get infection and or disease. And next is, once I receive the vaccine, I will test positive. So this also, some have tested positive. All of us know, I think, from in the month of March, February, March, and more so when there was the second wave surged in the end of April and in the month of May. Those who are taking vaccines, many of them had tested positive. This question came up, and I will show you the data. This is the data as of April 2021. If you see Covishield, the positivity is about 0.02%. And the following first dose and following second dose, it is 0.03%. And Covaxin, it is positivity is 0.04%. So, of course, we do see certain persons testing positive following vaccination, and the answer is they were having subclinical infection, and they were in the incubation period, and in the course of time they have tested positive. Some of them, they say that they are in the best of health and they go to gym, and they are not having any risk of any complications for COVID-19. They don't want to take vaccine. So the answer is, regardless of your presumed no risk status, you can still contract the infection and spread it to others. Besides, you may also suffer from the disease. There is no guarantee. It is important that one should get vaccinated, should be the message. And once the vaccine, basically one need to explain to them that it is better one gets vaccinated, and not only for his benefit and also for the benefit of the family. We also see many persons who are getting vaccinated to see that their family members are protected. I think we all know this situation, and so all kinds of scenarios we see in the community. Some getting vaccinated to protect their families, and some not getting vaccinated on the some false sense of well-being that they will not get COVID. So both extremes we see. And the next is, if I receive COVID-19 vaccine, I am at greater risk of becoming sick from another illness. So that is also not true. There is no such evidence as of now that vaccinated persons get other illnesses quicker than non-vaccinated persons. There is nothing like that. So next is certain, some have also did some research, and they are saying that a particular blood group is well, they are prone to COVID-19 infection, and so COVID sickness and blood group. So this is something. Next is about COVID vaccination causes infertility in women. So this also is being clearly explained. Misinformation on social media suggests that the vaccine trains the body to attack syncytin-1, a protein in the placenta, which could lead to infertility in women. The truth is, there is no amino acid sequence. I think Dr. Ravi would have better explained it. Spike protein and a placental protein. However, experts say it is too short to trigger an immune response that doesn't affect, therefore doesn't affect fertility. Now, pregnancy is a contraindication for vaccination. As on date, it is not recommended to vaccinate pregnant women. Government of India guidelines. But there are the POXI guidelines, that is the Obstetrics and Gynecologists Federation, India, Gynecologist Federation, and also WHO recommends that if a pregnant woman is found to be of a very high risk, like having many comorbidities and also in the middle of a COVID pandemic, that is very infection rates are very high, and she is likely to catch the infection, then one can consider counseling her and explaining the pros and cons, and if she is willing, and preferably in case of health worker, one can do this, but this is at an individual level. As of now, Government of India guidelines say no. WHO, FOXI, and other, there are some openings. But my recommendation is, even if you decide to vaccinate, based on my experience from the field of rabies vaccinology, keep it outside the window of organogenesis. That is, 6 to 10 weeks of pregnancy is the time when the organs develop uh, in the child in the womb, that is the fetus, and that period shall be avoided to vaccinate any pregnant woman. So it is desirable, preferable, or safer to give it after 10 weeks, or ideally after the first trimester, 12 weeks of pregnancy, to avoid possible teratogenic effect of the vaccine. We don't know. So this is a very tricky issue. I am just sensitizing the medical professionals who are attending this webinar, and particularly the obstetricians, to keep this in mind. I have received many telephonic inquiries about vaccinating pregnant women last month, when the second wave was its intense in an intense way, and so this is becoming a kind of a necessity. Studies are on, clinical trials are on. Lactation, of course, was also a contraindication, and recently, about a fortnight back, Government of India guidelines have clarified that lactating mothers can be vaccinated now, recent. Next is, vaccination should not be taken during menstruation. So I think this again is a myth, and it can be given to women during menstruation. There is no scientific explanation or rationale to avoid it during that period. And also, because of the Covishield particularly, there were some issues related to clotting disorders and issues. I think this was much in the news in the month of March, April, and now it has been made very clear that persons who are having bleeding disorders and who are on any antiplatelet drugs or any statins, they can safely be vaccinated. And the only thing is, when they receive the vaccine, they can keep the swab that is given to wipe that injection area pressed for a minute to stop bleeding, so that if there is any possible little more bleed, that is stopped by the physical pressure. So this is some guideline which I saw in some source. So with this, I stop here, and I have covered whatever was there in the last 4 months from my experience, and I think rest we can take up during the question and answer session. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sorry for some internet issues. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, over to Rupashri.
Thank you, Dayanand sir.
Okay, ma'am.
Very good evening to one and all. And thank you, Professor V. Ravi sir and Professor M.K. Sudarshan sir, for addressing the issues related to COVID-19 vaccine and vaccination myths and facts on this platform. So the first question is, with your kind permission, I'd like to take it up, sir. So the first question is, are these vaccines contraindicated in the persons who have received monoclonal antibodies?
Which monoclonal antibody? General.
General.
Okay. Yeah.
General.
Yeah. So, Dr. Ravi, would you like to answer?
Yeah, the question is not contraindication, it is not recommended. Primarily because the vaccine antigens or the vaccine mRNA, the proteins that are produced by mRNA vaccines or inactivated vaccines will be neutralized by the monoclonal cocktail. So always it's like, if I am recently infected, can I take the vaccine? There is no harm in taking the vaccine. But why don't you give the benefit of the natural response to the body first? When it is waning, then you boost with the vaccine. So it is not that it is contraindicated, it is just that the vaccine efficacy will go down drastically in the presence of either natural antibodies or the monoclonal antibodies that are administered over.
Right, sir. Right. So the next question, sir. So if a person is taken first dose of Covaxin and second dose by mistake he is being administered with Covishield, so what it should be done? Like should they go for another dose of Covishield or Covaxin, or they should stop it at that point?
No, they should stop it at that point. No need to repeat the vaccine. And if somebody is very, very suspicious, they can go and get their antibody tested. That's all. By using a eClear platform testing. That's all. That is the last point. I think I request Dr. V. Ravi also to add on. Yeah, please.
I would, if it is inadvertently happened, what Professor
Yes.
Sudarshan said is very correct. Stop it at that stage and get an antibody test done if you are very anxious. Over.
Right. Sir. So this is a question. If a couple is on fertility treatment like IVF and other things, can they be vaccinated, sir?
Yeah, why not? They can be vaccinated. As I told you, no, these are not known to interfere in the fertility. And also because the pandemic is all around us, so you have to weigh the pros and cons of the threat of infection and disease, the benefit of vaccination, and also whatever they are planning related to fertility. So this they will have to triangulate and then take a decision. And from the perspective of vaccination, there are no issues. They can always ask their obstetrician or the gynecologist also for an opinion. There is no issue. I request Dr. V. Ravi to add on this.
I would entirely agree with Professor Sudarshan. There's another question people have asked me on various platforms, whether you can plan your pregnancy. Right now, we have vaccines that you can take 2 doses in 4 weeks, either the Covaxin or the Sputnik, if it is possible. Generally, do not mix up two issues in life. That's a general philosophy of life. So finish vaccination and do what you want to do. If it is planned, if it is accidental, nothing can be done. Over.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir. Gautam, do we have any hand raise options?
No, madam.
So I have a question here from Shani Matthew, sir. So it's an elaborate question. Maybe it's like her own experience. So I'd like I take 1 minute, sir. So here they say they had a vaccination, first dose of vaccination, Covishield on March 10, and they were planning to go for travel. They tested and they were tested positive. And because they tested positive, they were given antibiotics and steroids, anticoagulants, etc. Then again, after May 14th, again they got tested, and but when they got tested positive, they did not had any symptoms. Even though they had no symptoms, they were given medications. Then again in May, they had all the symptoms, but and again they had another attack of infection. They had to take medications including remdesivir and etc. And now they are getting better. So their question is like even after vaccination, they had all these issues. Your comments on that?
Yeah, they have taken only 1 dose of vaccine. I think person has taken 1 dose of vaccine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
and in between there were some 2 episodes of infection oblique disease as I understand.
Correct.
So after full recovery and then 3 months
Yes.
later on, depending on the recommendations prevailing at that point of time, they can go for the second dose of vaccination as on today is the scientific guideline. And please remember that COVID is a very fast evolving or a very dynamic situation or dynamic condition in the disease. So the recommendations of April 2021 may not hold good in May 2021. So whatever is the recommendation at that point of time, 3 months from the time of the recovery, that shall prevail and they shall follow that. In between, there was a question. I think I saw it on the in the chat box. I think I will answer because I might be confusing people also. It is possible. Should we vaccinate pregnant women? No. As per national guidelines, no. If the person who is asking the question is an obstetrician, there are some guidelines from World Health Organization and from FOGSI, Federation of Obstetrics and Gynecologists of India. So you can, as a Gynecologist Societies of India. So you can go by those guidelines, and they are very, they are very professional advisories, and they require some further discussions. I will not go into those details. The answer is no as per national guidelines, because the vaccines are given in the institutions. They are not given by individuals in individual clinic practice. Presently, the vaccines are supplied by the producers directly to the institutions, government and private. So here the situation is different, and these are all not fully registered vaccines, and they have been released on emergency use authorization in view of pandemic. So the science of vaccine also is developing and is evolving. So over a period of time, guidelines change, and at that given point of time, lactation, March, no vaccination to lactating mothers. April, I think in the month of May, yes, vaccination can be given to lactating mothers. See how in a span of 1 month guideline change. So similarly, there may be a change in the guideline for pregnant women, but as on today, as on this date, no vaccination to pregnant women as per national guidelines. Over.
Right. Another question from Fatima De Silvia. For how long the immunity lasts after the vaccination of both the doses?
Yeah, I request Dr. Ravi to answer, please. Yeah, Dr. Ravi, please. Yeah.
As of now, this is evolving, as Professor Sudarshan said. As of now, we know it lasts 9 months. How do we say that? Post-marketing surveillance is going on for Pfizer, Moderna, and even AstraZeneca. These trials were held between August and October. And those who have participated there, they have undergoing testing, a small proportion of them. So they have antibodies at the end of 9 months. But a recent paper published in Nature Medicine very clearly said, both in vaccination as well as in infection, memory cells are induced. They are found in the bone marrow, and that is good news. And if you look at the experience from other SARS viruses like SARS-CoV-1 and MERS coronavirus, immunity lasts for 1 to 2 months. So we expect immunity to last for 1 to 2 years at least, not months, 1 to 2 years at least. Only thing is, remember, if there is a new variant that emerges where the existing vaccines are not effective, then they can get an infection. Otherwise, as of now, definitely 1 year immunity will last over.
Right. So related to the same thing, they want to know, is there any requirement for booster dose? I think last time also you answered, but again we have.
Yeah, audience is different.
Yes.
The answer is you have to wait. We will get the recommendation soon, whether we need booster or not. Again, depends on the vaccine and the variants. Over.
So we have one hand raised. Gautam, please allow them to unmute.
Good afternoon, sir.
Please
My
go ahead.
specific question is, since you are all involved in the COVID task force, are we looking at tuberculosis also in the COVID patients?
Actually, yes. See, presently the focus is on COVID illness in the patients with reference to the lungs, and the pulmonologists till now who are members of our committee, uh, we have not discussed tuberculosis and COVID together. Yes, that is it. Dr. Ravi, please.
I did not understand the question. What is the question? Can you please?
Sir, there is a lot of relevance which we are drawing towards the various disorders caused by COVID, which fall under the respiratory this one. And we have written a white paper document which says mucormycosis, pulmonary disorders in the Indian population, which most of us are dormant TB carriers. Are we turning into active TB carriers? And just a correlation I wanted from your end, sir.
Right now, there is no epidemiological evidence that TB is exacerbated following COVID. There are a couple of papers published on it. So it does not influence the progression from dormant to overt tuberculosis in COVID so far. The contrary, there are many trials going on. BCG vaccine is being used as a non-specific booster of immune response using a concept known as strained immunity that boosts cell-mediated immunity. Even in India, Serum Institute of India is conducting a BCG vaccine trial and looking at its protection for COVID. So COVID itself exacerbating tuberculosis or modifying the course of illness, there is no literature, excepting a couple of papers which have said there is no difference. Over.
Right, sir. Right. So here is a question, sir. How is vaccination better than natural infection? They say although vaccination gives more antibodies, as it is not RBD specific antibodies, instead some of the vaccines are anti-spike antibodies. So not all the antibodies acquired via vaccine can prevent the infection.
No, first I will, I think Ravi will follow me. Let me just answer first. I think let us not experiment by exposing ourselves to infection. It is a very risky venture. So
Right.
let us have the vaccination and feel safe, and it is better that way. And if somebody wants to have the infection and go with the live virus experimentation and get the a better immune response, a more robust immune response following a natural infection, it is a hazardous proposition and it is not advisable. Over to Dr. Ravi.
Thank you, sir. I had addressed this in my presentation briefly. Vaccination is a process in which you are delivering humongous amount of antigen to the immune system and training the immune system to build an aggressive response. This is true of any viral vaccine. That is the difference between natural infection. Second, in the case of COVID vaccine, there are different vaccines I showed that there are 4 types of vaccines. Many of them are targeting only the spike protein, whether it's the subunit vaccine or the genetic vaccine or the viral vector vaccine, they are targeting only the spike protein. Excepting whole virus vaccines, all the vectored vaccines, genetic and subunit vaccines will give immunity only to the spike protein. That has advantages and disadvantages. Advantages because it is a very brisk response. It immediately recognizes the virus and neutralizes. Disadvantage, if there are new variants completely different from what is circulating now, then the immunity may not work. Natural infection gives the immune system a whole range of antigens. That is where whole virus vaccines, traditional technology gives that experience, and it gives that advantage that if not the spike protein, there are other proteins to the virus against which immune response is mounted. So it is not one against the other, but overall natural infection the immune response wanes by 3 to 5 months. There are many studies publishing it. And there are people who, after natural infection, have got reinfected. Like those who are reinfected after vaccination, all that has got to do with variants emerging. Over.
Right, right. So here we have few questions, sir, related to the production of antibodies post vaccination. There are chances in, they have seen some cases where there is no detectable antibodies after COVID infection or after vaccination. What could be the reason for this?
Nobody knows the reason for it. In any infection, 100% of people do not develop antibodies after infection or after vaccination. In COVID, natural infection, there are wonderful papers published saying that about 90 to 95 maximum develop antibodies following natural infection. 5 to 10% of people do not develop antibodies. That is up to 42 days after being diagnosed as RT-PCR positive. This is especially in asymptomatics.
Right.
When you repeat much beyond, a small proportion are late seroconverters. The same thing for vaccine. You are supposed to get antibodies detected in protective levels 2 to 4 weeks after the second dose of vaccination. But there will be a proportion of people who do not develop antibodies. There are a number of reasons for it. Whether they are on any other medication, they are on immune modulating drugs. There are papers published saying that chloroquine, those who have taken as prophylaxis, they are poor antibody responders. But if they are very concerned, they should get cell-mediated immune responses investigated. CMI may be very dominant and humoral response may be mild. Over.
Right. So here, Dr. Deepti Nagaraj, sir, again, they have one personal experience. They are a family of 3 members. They had mild symptoms, which was fever, loss of taste, and loss of smell, but they did not get tested. After a few days, those symptoms got subsided. Now the question is, should they take vaccine immediately or they have to wait for another 3 months?
Shall I answer first, sir?
No, you go ahead and answer.
Then
I'd like
Dr. Sudarshan will add to what I say.
Yeah.
Loss of smell, recent loss of smell and loss of taste is 100% COVID. If they are in doubt, let them get a COVID antibody test done. I would say that this is a mild infection people have noticed. And when you have a mild infection, give the body time to build its natural immune response. Don't interfere by giving a vaccine. You will not get full benefit. Take full advantage of vaccine 3 months after you recovered, as Dr. Sudarshan said. Over.
Same. 3 months later, if you are a doctor, I think for you, even 1 dose may be adequate also. We don't know. 1 dose is adequate as per the current science. But anyway, you check the antibody and then take the second dose if required and all. But it is definitely a very classical sign of COVID. Very mild COVID, actually. It is very mild. This is actually very mild. Loss of smell and loss of taste. Very mild. Somebody was asking what is mild and what is very mild COVID. Very mild COVID is loss of smell, loss of taste is very mild. Okay. Clinically.
Very
Okay,
interestingly, there are papers that say that those who have lost smell and those who have lost taste are the people who will not usually progress to moderate and ventilatory stage. On the contrary, those who have gastrointestinal symptoms most often land up with severe disease. These are clinical papers that have been published in COVID. Over.
Right.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you, sir. Gautam, do we have any other hand raise?
No, madam.
We'll take a couple of questions to end this program.
Right, sir. So again, I have a lot of questions, like specifically, sir, like should anybody, I mean, if a person is having allergy to penicillin injection, they know that they are allergic to penicillin. Is there any precaution which they should take when going for COVID vaccination?
Okay, let me take this. Around 25 people I have counseled.
Avina,
Some very close doctor friends who have had history of allergies, including penicillin allergy, allergy to variety of drugs, and extensive food allergy. My only advice, and it has turned out well so far, is to take a test dose. This you'll have to convince the vaccinating team. You should take a test dose intradermal. Dr. Sudarshan will answer more better than me. And wait for 2 to 3 hours. If there is no tingling, rash, itching, then proceed with the remaining 0.4 ml intramuscular. Sir, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. See, I had anaphylaxis to penicillin as a child, and I have taken 2 doses of Covishield, and there has been no issues. Absolutely, virtually no zero side effects. Of course, my experience cannot be generalized, but it is just an add-on to what Dr. V. Ravi has said. So, an intradermal skin sensitivity test is the best approach, and this is possible in some specialty clinics who are well conversant with this skin testing and all. So they will do it, and if required, they can do a control, a normal saline, a sterile normal saline control to the other forearm, and then do it and all, because we do this for anti-sera. So we are familiar with that skin sensitivity test. So those who are familiar with skin sensitivity test, they can do it, and then once convinced, they can go ahead and give the intramuscular COVID vaccination, and there should not be any problem. Normally, about half an hour is also the observation time for any reactions for any intradermal testing, skin sensitivity test. So there should not be any problem. Over.
Right, sir. So there is one hand raise option, sir. After this, we will end this question answer session. Gautam, please allow them to unmute themselves.
Yes, madam.
Hello.
Yes, madam, go ahead.
Good evening, sir. A person of chronic rheumatoid arthritis with the drugs of methotrexate and HQ on regular basis, can she get vaccinated?
The answer is yes, madam. The only thing I have counseled again close to a dozen rheumatoid arthritis patients. Some of them have been on HCQ and some of them have been on steroids. The only thing is, if steroids or chloroquine can be stopped for the duration of the vaccination between the 2 doses, it is well and good. If not, there is no contraindication to taking vaccine. The full benefit of vaccination may not be available in the presence of immunomodulatory drugs or immunosuppressants like chloroquine and steroids, respectively. Over. Sir, you want to add?
Yeah. Say if it is a doctor, I will give some explanation additional from the rabies vaccine. Rabies vaccination.
Question asked by nurse, sir.
I know it's okay. It's okay. Even then you can take this information. See, HCQ is a chloroquine derivative. So, intradermal rabies vaccination is not recommended to those who are on chloroquine prophylaxis. Okay, chloroquine treated during chloroquine treatment, because the immune response is known to be clinically less. So that's why intramuscular vaccination was recommended in case of rabies. So here also, by going by the same analogy, as this vaccine is intramuscular, as Professor Ravi said, only the vaccine response may be suboptimal, but if you can stop the SCQ and or the steroid for the duration of vaccination, it would be ideal to get the maximum benefit of vaccination. Otherwise, usual, continue with your treatment, continue the vaccination, and check for antibody response after 3 weeks of the second dose. Thank you. Thank you.
So I'll end this question answer session with this last question, sir. So are there any conditions for which the people are taking medications like blood thinners or any other like Budecort, etc.? These drugs, should they be stopped for any vaccination, or they can continue with the medications if they get vaccinated?
No, actually, see, currently now, these are not, budesonide is a very, very low dose steroid, and it is possibly not having any immunosuppressive effect. And stopping budesonide in certain conditions and going for vaccination. See, availability of vaccine also is an issue now. Okay, so they should go for the vaccination and let them continue with budesonide inhalation. There should not be any problem. And what was the other drug you said? Other was this statins and all. So now there, or initially there were some reservations. There is no need to stop, and they can continue with their statins and antiplatelet drugs and take the vaccine intramuscular only. These are all COVID vaccinations are all intramuscular. No issues. As I told, the only one specific clinical recommendation given is those who are on, you see, majority of these hypertensives, they are on some blood thinners. Okay, so yeah, so and diabetics and all after 50 and all, they are on some statins. So it is quite common these days. So just and there is no guideline saying that they are contraindicated. So give the vaccine and leave that swab pressed for a minute, so that there is no oozing of blood from the injection site. That's all is the additional guideline that has come. Otherwise, there is nothing beyond this. Over to Professor Ravi, please. Yeah.
I entirely agree with Professor Sudarshan. I have nothing else to add.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you, Ravi sir. Thank you, Sudarshan sir, for answering all the questions. Thank you so much. Over to you, Dayanand sir.
One small thing which I want to mention.
Please,
I think, you see, whatever rush we are seeing for vaccine and lathi charge and law and order problem at vaccination centers, this is directly in proportion to the number of cases we see every day. As the cases recede, the demand for vaccination also is expected to recede. So let us keep this in mind. There was no demand for vaccination in the month of January, February, March. Suddenly everything boomeranged in the month of April and May. We know the reason. So let us keep this in mind, that the vaccine demand is directly related to the number of cases reported every day. More the cases, more the vaccine demand. Thank you. This is my subjective assessment. Over.
Thank you so much, sir. Over to you, Dayanand sir.
Dr. Mahendra?
Yeah, please. Gautam, prepare the next program's information. The Honorable VC, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, your closing remarks, sir, please.
I thank both Dr. M.K. Sudarshan and Dr. Ravi for their expertise and their opinion. They very clearly outlined how vaccines have been introduced, why there was a necessary for fast tracking the vaccines, and their efficacy. Even though it is fast tracked, the efficacy has not been compromised. It has gone through all the steps, both animal and human experiments, both phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 in human this thing. So the public need not worry about the efficacy of vaccines, and it has already proved beyond doubt in the last few months the efficacy of vaccines. Also, there are information that the vaccines may also give lifelong immunity through the T cells. So a lot of issues are now coming to the forefront. With all that, both Dr. Sudarshan and Dr. Ravi have busted the myths and also put forward the facts about vaccination. Every day we are getting more and more information regarding vaccines, and definitely the number of people who are now getting vaccinated are more, because they have understood the necessity for getting vaccinated, and also by getting vaccinated, not only they are getting protected, but also the spread of infection is also minimized. And they're also contributing towards development of herd immunity. With all this, I probably such CME programs need to be organized regularly as far as vaccination is concerned, because we learn every day. We keep learning and we keep getting new information which can be shared at different points of time. On behalf of RGHS, I thank both Dr. Sudarshan and Dr. Ravi for this program, and they're always with us. Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure always to be with you. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Mahendra.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I request Dr. Dayanand to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Okay, good evening, one and all. On behalf of the Vice Chancellor and Registrar of the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, I thank today's speakers, Dr. V. Ravi and Dr. Sudarshan sir, for the very clear and updated information on vaccine and vaccinations. And I thank the ECHO India for their cooperation with the program. And I thank all the RGHS officers and Dr. Keves and Kirti and Somshekar for their cooperation for this program. And I thank all the participants who participated. And I thank one and all. Thank you, sir.
Gautam,
Thank you.
would you please put up the next program details?
So the details of the next program in our continuation of this series of RGHS ECHO India online training for COVID-19 awareness. The topic of next program is Spectrum of Pediatric COVID. Speakers are Dr. Somshekar AR, Professor and HOD of Pediatrics, Ramaya College of Pediatric and Pulmonologist and Adolescent Care Specialist, Secretary, IAP, State Allergy, and Chief Editor of Pulmo Scan. And the other speaker is Dr. Raghunath CN. He is a HOD, Pediatrics and Pediatric Intensivist, Saga Hospitals, Vice President, Pediatric Intensive Care Chapter, Karnataka State, COVID-19 Task Force member. Please do log in for this program on June 8th, Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Gautam, may I request you to kindly close the meeting?